Good morning and welcome to the Maryland Public Service Commission, the Halloween edition. We do not have any minutes to approve from the last meeting, but we'll take care of that business at next week's meeting. Before I get started today, you'll notice that Commissioner Michael Richard is out. He is in Chicago at the OPSI, Organization of PJM States meeting, where he is being installed as the president of the 13-member state organization. I think that will bode well for the Maryland PSC, as PJM finds itself in a very difficult situation right now as the markets continue to change dramatically. I'd like to also make a personnel announcement. We have a new employee starting up in the engineering division, Michael Spiegelman. Is that you, Mike? Front and center. Joined the commission last week. He has over 18 years of experience. He worked for a electrical entity down in Severn for 18 years. He holds a master's in mechanical engineering, and I know he'll be a great asset to working with John and Craig and all the other staff in the engineering division. So, Michael, welcome to the team. With that, we will begin today's administrative meeting. Madam Secretary.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. On the consent agenda is PSEG Energy Solutions, LLC, filed on October 16, 2018, notice to withdraw its license to supply electricity or electric-generated services in Maryland.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I'd move that we cancel the company's license to operate as an electricity supplier in Maryland.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, we got a third as well. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion is passed. Madam Secretary, the administrative agenda.
Going to the administrative agenda, the second item is Mahata Mart, LLC, TA, trading as Silver Cab by its president, Indra K. Mahato, filed on August 9, 2018, a request to form a new Charles County Taxi Cab Association.
Thank you. Is representative from Mahata Mart present today? Seeing none. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Good morning. Well, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Kenny Albert on behalf of staff.
Mr. Albert, I apologize.
This item addressed a request by Mahata Mart, which does business as Silver Cab, for authorization to act as a taxi cab association in Charles County. In 2018, the Commission granted the Charles County's request to allow the Commission to begin the process of authorizing cab companies to operate in the county. Taxi cab service by Silver Cab will be available throughout the county, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Staff found satisfactory Silver Cab system of record keeping. Silver Cab gave staff information on their drivers, including criminal background checks. Based on its review, staff determined that Silver Cab will continue to operate as an effective and responsible taxi cab association. Staff did find a discrepancy between the chart and rate sheet information attached to staff's comments in connection with the request by another Charles County Cab Association, Waldorf Cab Association, for authorization to continue to operate in Charles County. They're the second cab association. At the October 10th administrative meeting, the Commission authorized Waldorf to operate in Charles County. Same rates applied to all cab associations in the county. Staff's comments on Silver Cab correct this discrepancy between the chart and rate sheet information. And the attached rate sheets contain the rates effective October 10, 2018. Based on this, staff recommends that the Commission authorize Silver Cab to operate as a Charles County Taxi Cab Association with the conditions recommended by staff.
Thank you, Mr. Albert. A few weeks ago, we approved a similar taxi cab association in Charles County. Is this the second and only other application we have before us, or are there others?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Mark Gorman with the Transportation Division. Yes, this is the second company of two that have made application.
Do we anticipate any others, Mr. Gorman?
Not at this time, no.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When we approved on October 10th the other cab companies, we modified our recommendation to ensure that any assertions made in response to staff during its investigation of these companies was incorporated into the long-term commitments of that company. Should we do the same for consistency's sake? I think we probably should in terms of our motion, but I don't want to cause a problem, so I want to get staff's opinion of doing so.
Well, I believe, are you referring to the application to become an association, or are you referring to, because this is the first step in the process.
Okay, so that was the application to become an association.
That's what this is, yes, Mr.
Okay.
Commissioner.
So will we have a subsequent filing to this?
Well, what's going to occur after this, once this, if it is approved, then they're going to have to make applications for the permits. The vehicles are going to have to be inspected, and
Yeah, no, I get all that, but this is the commission's authorization for them to operate as a regulated taxi cab company under our auspices, correct?
correct.
So, again, on October 10th, we modified the motion for Yellow of Waldorf to incorporate their responses to data requests from staff as commitments. It's part of our formal motion.
Yes,
Am
I do recall, yes.
And my question is, should we do the same here? For consistency?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, very good. I just wanted to make sure that did not cause a problem.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's the only question I have.
Thank you. Other commissioners? Commissioner O'Donnell, may I ask that you make the motion?
Okay. Can you give me a second?
Yes. I guess we could just incorporate the conditions of October 10th.
All right, Mr. Chairman, let me take a stab at this. Mr. Chairman, I move the commission approve the company's request to operate as a Charles County Taxi Cab Association contingent upon its compliance with all commission requirements and the assertions made in response to staff inquiry associated with this application and associated with offering taxi cab services in the state of Maryland by November 30th, 2018, and accept the Charles County rate schedule effective October 10th, 2018.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion is approved. Thank you.
Items 3 and 4 can be called together. Item 3 is Statewise Energy Maryland LLC, filed on March 5th, 2018, an application for a license to supply natural gas or national gas supply services in Maryland. And item 4 is Statewise Energy Maryland LLC, filed on March 5th, 2018, an application for a license to supply electricity or electric generation services in Maryland.
Thank you. And if the representative from Statewise could please approach. Mr. Albert.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Kenneth Albert on behalf of staff. This item addresses a request by Statewise for authorization to operate as an electricity and natural gas supplier. Their management has significant experience in the energy industry. Statewise or its affiliates currently operate as a supplier in 9 states. Over the past 10 years, there have been a total of 8 enforcement actions by 4 different government regulatory commissions against affiliates of Statewise due to improper marketing practices as energy suppliers. Staff's comments includes a summary of these enforcement proceedings. 8 enforcement proceedings is an unusually high number of enforcement proceedings against a supplier coming into our state. However, staff believes that Statewise and its affiliates have implemented a robust program to ensure compliance with the marketing standards that Maryland imposes, and we have met with the company and discussed their compliance program. It's significant that there has been a very low number of complaints against Statewise over the past 12 months, which we believe suggests that they have implemented an effective compliance program. Therefore, staff believes that Statewise will operate in a responsible manner as a supplier in Maryland. We've reviewed their training and marketing materials and believe they're satisfactory. We've also reviewed their website, and that too we believe is satisfactory. Therefore, Commission recommends that the Commission authorize Statewise to operate as an electricity and natural gas supplier.
Thank you. Will the representative from Statewise please make an appearance?
Yes, good morning. Jeff Donnelly, representing Statewise. I'm the Director of Regulatory Affairs and Compliance. Just to add on to staff's comments, Out of the 8 enforcement actions, only 2 involved entities in the U.S. The majority of them are in excess of 5 years old and all occurred in Ontario. The 2 incidences in the U.S., one being in Pennsylvania, was an isolated incident, which was essentially a staff error in conducting a background check. They entered the wrong date of birth, which resulted in the certification of a sales rep who had a past criminal record. We have implemented internal processes to ensure that that type of error doesn't occur again. And the second matter was from 2013, which is actually in excess of 5 years old now. And that was in New York, and it was staff issuing of a show cause, which eventually never went before the PSC because our affiliate introduced several proposed changes to its sales and marketing practices, including enhanced changes to the third-party verification process, which was later implemented by the PSC as a result of staff putting forward to make amendments to the uniform business practices.
Thank you for that additional detail. I do see that you have one affiliate currently operating in Maryland, SFE.
Yes, that's right.
Has a complaint ratio of about 0.1%. How many customers does that SFE have in Maryland?
I believe last time I checked it was approximately 25,000.
25,000, okay. So that'd be about 250 complaints? No, 25 complaints.
Yes.
Yes. I'm off by
As of this
Yeah.
year, last time I checked with my staff, we have about 11 informal complaints that were all resolved informally to the satisfaction of the customers.
And what are these complaints typically represent? What's a common example?
Typically, the complaints are customers alleging that they didn't understand what they were signing up for, but after we produced the third-party verification call and the sales agreement to staff and to the customer, it's clear that the customer knew exactly what they were signing up for. Our verification process that goes well over and above the current requirements in Comar in Maryland, as well in other states that we operate in. Our verification call is about 12 minutes long. If you're actually to look at the regulation requirements under Comar, that call in essence would only be about 6 minutes. We go as far as to ensure that the customer understands that they're obviously not signing up with that Statewise is not making any allegations or reference that they're signing up with the utility, with the that we're affiliated with the commission, that we're affiliated or made any representations about any other marketer. We provide a business card at the point of sale. The customer is required to turn the business card over and read back the business card, which will state Statewise Energy is not the utility, which is followed up by another question or statement from the verification representative, which says Statewise Energy also is not representing the PSC or any other supplier. We find that that process really helps to ensure that the customer has reading comprehension, has read the terms and conditions, and fully understands what they're signing up for. I would say that the 11 complaints that we received even for this year are essentially chalked up to buyer's remorse once we produce the sales verification call and the signed contract.
So you keep an archive of all these calls in file somewhere?
Everything's on file, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Question of staff, of the remainder balance of the complaints, 25 or whatever it may be, that are not informally resolved, how many of them are still active in front of OER? Does anyone know? Or are they in front of OER?
We don't have that information.
I can speak from the company's perspective. I believe they're all closed.
They're all resolved?
All resolved, yes.
Okay. All right, obviously, the history causes some concern, and we want to make sure, I'm sure all of us want to make sure that supplier competition goes forth in Maryland in a more robust way, and the more problems we have in that regard, with regard to consumer dissatisfaction, the less chance we'll further our aims to get supplier competition in Maryland. So
Commissioner, I completely agree with your comments. Statewise and its affiliates have made significant changes in their compliance process over the last 5 years, which includes myself coming to the company. I've been with the company for just over 5 years. My background initially started my career in policing, and then I worked for 3 other regulators in the province of Ontario, regulating new home construction and other professional regulations. I left working for the regulator to work for this company. And since I've been there in the last 5 years, we've made significant enhancements to the compliance and complaint handling process. We went from a staff of 5 to a staff of 12, which also includes U.S. field compliance representatives that go out and conduct regular visits with the sales offices and do in-field shadowing.
Thank you.
Commissioner Linton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question for staff. Normally, some of your proposed recommendation, if you have not already done so, requires that the company submit their marketing materials and outreach materials to you for review. Your current proposed motion doesn't include that, so I'm assuming you've already reviewed their marketing materials?
That's
And it's-
correct. We reviewed, we note that in the budget. We have looked
Okay.
at their training.
And it was all prepared and designed for Maryland laws and regulations?
Yeah. Do you want?
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Paige Shaw on behalf of staff. Yeah, we reviewed their training and marketing materials and everything. Seemed to check out.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, with respect to items number 3 and 4, I move that we grant the company a license to operate as a natural gas supplier and an electricity supplier in Maryland for the customer classes and service territories recommended by staff, and direct the company to file notice with the Commission within 30 days of any changes to the information in the application.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
The 2 motions are approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Items 5 and 6 can be called together. Item 5 is Interconnects LLC, filed on August 28, 2018, an application for a license to supply natural gas or natural gas supply services in Maryland. Item 6 is Interconnects LLC, filed on August 28, 2018, an application for a license to supply electricity or electric generation services in Maryland.
And do we have a representative from Interconnect here today? We do not. Oh. No. Mr. Albert.
Mr. Chairman, Kenneth Albert on behalf of staff. This item addresses a request by Interconnect for authorization to operate as a broker and aggregator of electricity and natural gas. Interconnect's management team, they do have significant experience in the energy industry. No complaints have been filed against them in the states where they're currently operating. Staff did review their website and training and marketing materials and found these materials satisfactory. Therefore, staff recommends that the Commission authorize Interconnect to operate as a broker and aggregator of electricity and natural gas.
Seeing no questions, is there a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I move that we grant the company a license to operate as a natural gas supplier in Maryland, limited to broker and aggregator services for the customer classes and service territories applied for and recommended by staff. That's for item number 5. For item number 6, I would also move that we grant the company a license to operate as an electricity supplier in Maryland, limited to broker and aggregator services for the customer classes and service territories applied for and recommended by staff. And for both motions, I'd move that we direct the company to file notice with the Commission within 30 days of any changes to the information in the application.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Both motions are approved.
The last item on the administrative agenda, item 7, is DHHS FDA, filed on March 30, 2018, a request for waiver of penalties accrued due to a malfunction of heating equipment from January 5, 2018 until January 7, 2018, resulting in use of natural gas during the event pursuant to paragraph 3.4B of the Schedule IS.
Thank you. I see a representative of Washington Gas is with us today. Is a representative of the Food and Drug Administration with us today? Oh, that is unfortunate. Thank you, Ms. Garofalo.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Annette Garofalo on behalf of Commission staff. The Department of Health and Human Services Food and Drug Administration is requesting a waiver of the penalty provisions under Washington Gas Light Company's Gas Tariff Schedule Number 4 pertaining to interruptible customers. FDA failed to comply during part of a distribution system interruption day event in January 2018, which triggered the penalties for failure to interrupt under WGL's tariff. Staff recommends the company grant DHHS FDA a waiver in the amount of $2,866.16. It's FDA's position that its failure to comply, which was caused by a mechanical failure, was beyond its control. FDA satisfied WGL's validation of interruptible readiness on October 24, 2017. FDA timely transitioned from natural gas to an alternative fuel at the beginning of the 48-hour interruption in January 2018. However, approximately 10 hours into the interruption period, an unexpected mechanical failure occurred, and FDA, despite immediate efforts to cure this defect, was unable to have the boiler repaired until the interruption period had ended. Under the interpretation of WGL's waiver of penalty provisions accepted by the Commission in its letter order dated September 19, 2018, FDA would owe the cost of gas consumed during the interruption period at the highest commodity rate per therm on each day of noncompliance, in addition to the cost-based demand charge per therm described in WGL's tariff. Staff calculates this as $3,183.12. The basis for this calculation is shown on page 6 of staff's comments. And staff recommends that any charges over this amount for usage during the interruption period be waived, and that is the reason staff's asking for an interruption for a waiver of the $2,866.16.
Thank you, Ms. Garofalo. I had some questions of the party requesting the waiver, but they're not here today. Complete Building Services, is that an agent for the FDA? The party who actually signed and made the request is on letterhead for Complete Building?
I'm not sure. It's possible that.
Good morning, Commissioners. Margaret Tuberty on behalf of staff. Are you referring to the Complete Building Services from the initial filing?
Dated March 30th.
Yes, okay. So we had a situation where the party that filed the waiver request on behalf of the FDA is no longer an employee. Basically, the FDA no longer contracts them for their regulatory affairs, is our understanding.
Okay.
So all future communications between us and the FDA was with their new representative, who I don't have the name of the new company on hand.
Is there a reason why they're not here today? Have you been in contact with them?
I've been in contact via email and on the phone, but I don't have any information as to why they are not present.
Okay. My concern is they made a request back on March 30th and requesting a waiver. They don't specify any particular waiver amount. Is my understanding correct? We're calculating the waiver amount for them?
Yes, and in the past filings, the other two previously this year that we saw, they also didn't make necessarily specific requests as to the amount. They just asked for either the full amount of the penalty or their full bill, not necessarily understanding what was a penalty and what was not.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Dodge. Can you shed any light on my questions? I know it's I don't want to have WGL answer for the FDA.
Unfortunately, I cannot, Your Honor. Our comments in this matter were filed prior to the resolution of the University of Maryland complaint, which established some precedent for calculation of the waiver, and we are not going to contest staff's calculation. No cross-of-gold speech this morning, I promise. I'm happy to answer any questions about our understanding of the interruption, but we don't know about the agency relationship with these outside contractors.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge. That's the extent of my questions. Commissioner O'Donnell.
I just wanted to welcome Mr. Dodge back. We certainly missed you during last week's Empower hearings.
I don't think he missed us.
I heard it went swimmingly, Your Honor.
Mr. Dodge, so you're saying that your comments with the difference in the penalty amount were filed before the commission had issued the order, the recent order on the penalty waiver, and so you're not disputing staff's calculation at this point?
That's correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Mr. Dodge, I would prefer you to a page in the documents that were presented by the Food and Drug Administration, but there's no page number. But it's called a validation of interruptible readiness form. There were 3 of them in their materials that I was able to find. Each of them, although at the bottom it says it's supposed to be returned by October 31st of the prior year, it was October 30th of the next year that was submitted to you. So I guess what I wanted to make sure of is this the kind of document WGL was expecting to receive from the company in order to confirm that they were ready for the upcoming winter?
I believe so, Your Honor. I'm not personally familiar with this exact form, but I do know in the process that we do require or request that the interruptible customer submit documentation of readiness.
Okay. Yeah, these are probably questions better for the agency than for you, but I just was wondering what went into it. You know, how were they able to certify that they were ready? And there are 3 of these in here, and so I don't really know what they're for. But
I know that when our personnel make site visits, it's a several-hour process to ramp up the alternative fuel boiler, for example, and we stand by and make sure that it runs smoothly. But for customer-specific tests, I'm less familiar with that.
Okay. Would you expect another one, like a one in December or in January, or would this October 30th one be the last one you'd expect from the company for?
Generally, there's one per year.
One per year. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Well, in light of our precedent, I believe the staff has accurately calculated what the waiver amount should be, and it is just a fraction of a large fraction, about a third of the charges incurred over this event. I am therefore comfortable with the staff recommendation. Commissioners, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move the commission grant the Department of Health and Human Services, Food and Drug Administration, the waiver of a penalty in an amount of $2,866.16.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion is approved. Seeing no additional business before the commission today, have a happy Halloween. This meeting is adjourned.